music, you know, because, you know, music with a good beat to it, and it actually sort of, you get into this sort of thing of, you know, flicking around almost in sort of time to sort of the music, or you go into another world and you get a sort of like a rhythm in you, and it helps you sort of get everything so that it actually then does blend, and you're not looking at something where that mottling, because when it's all fairly even all over it, it looks as it's meant to be, part of the actual composition and intentional. But if you don't do that, you know, you'll get it motley nicely here in a really white, blank, obvious space where it's, you know, it's not motley and like that. So I get into all of those sorts of things. I got into cameras, I got into telescopes, and I started going out and taking pictures of the night sky. And like my artwork, I got really fanatical about it. When I was a little kid, I used to sort of sit out under the stars. My old man had this pair of binoculars. I don't even know whether they were his, but they were broken. You can only look out one side of them, you know, sort of. And after a while, I sort of got them out, and I used to go to the library and read books and all that about astronomy, and I didn't have any grounding from an Aboriginal perspective about, you know, the night sky lore, as, you know, Christine Nichols put it the other night, or last Friday when she opened the show. But I don't know what it must have been about 5, 6, 7 years ago, I started sort of thinking, and I realised that, like a lot of things nowadays, there's some amazing stuff you could go out and buy, you know, if you had the money, you know, because we've got to have bunda because, you know, nothing's free, but I could never afford anything. And when I was a kid and I had that broken pair of binoculars, and they lasted me until my mate across the road, who then sort of started joining me, sort of looking at the sky and that sort of thing. I don't know, he was about 10 or something, he was about a year younger than me. His old man bought him a little telescope, so we'd go and sort of set it up, you know, sort of in our yard, you know, and look through it in the night time, particularly on the weekends. You know, you didn't have to go to school and all that sort of thing, so you could stay up all night or sleep out. We used to sleep outside, I suppose you'd call it. But so I got all interested in that sort of thing. And it's disappeared behind the clouds. It doesn't actually move across the sky. You don't see a comet going through the sky. You actually sort of see it fixed, but it moves every night during. And this one had risen, and there was that was the old moon, you know, sort of there, which looked like it was like a little min light. I sort of said here somewhere, or hanging from the tree. But I was just sitting in this little hollow right up the top of the back of the Mount Lofty Ranges, looking, I suppose, down towards Murray Bridge and that, from up, and you get down in this little. That's why you can see this sort of grass here, because I'm in this little sort of depression in the ground, and I had the tripod sort of set down really low so that the wind, because it's always windy up there, because, you know, you go 50 metres sideways and there's a great big sort of drop off into the Murray Flats sort of thing, so there's always strong winds there. But with the camera on a real low tripod and in this little hollow, I could sort of shoot the dawn sky as it was sort of coming up. This really, really heavy rain, and I sort of got up in the morning and I hopped in the car and I sort of drove out to one of these back tracks, and there was this huge big lake there, you know, like that had just suddenly come from all the rains about 3 days before. And when the light came up more, it was actually, there was all sort of birds and that sort of fluttering around. But I sort of tromped around to the other side of this lake in this paddock, you know, and it's like about this much mud, you know, you're sort of clomping around. I kept sank further and further in the mud because I had to walk all around because I wanted to shoot it from the other side with the sunrise coming up. And because I could, you know, I could see these, you know, the beautiful reflections of the trees and that. So I just sort of, that's one of the reasons I like the image, but I also included it because it was just sort of so different than what that country is sort of, people think of it, that sort of country as. And I guess what I'm sort of saying here is there's a Southern Cross up here, but you've got the shape of there's the emu's head. You can clearly see his beak and his head and his long neck going down here, and there's his body springs out, and that's all in the Milky Way, you know, like, which is in the really dark country sky shines out. The dark spots down near the Southern Cross, you know the pointers? Don't know the pointers either? No, well, they point to the Southern Cross type of thing, but and the Southern Cross and the pointers in various Aboriginal lore are, you know, in some they're a possum. There's all different sorts of interpretations. Some of them are very consistent right across Australia, like the Seven Sisters, and some of them they change. But one of the ones that's pretty consistent is the dark shapes in the Milky Way. You can see the head of the emu there, and, you know, and the body as it stretches out. And so that's on a really dark night in a nice place with the Milky Way right across. It's a great one to see. Well, you got, you know, the hunter, or what you call the hunter, and a lot of Aboriginal groups as well, and the Seven Sisters up here. You don't know the Seven Sisters? No.
Not to look at in the
No.
I've seen
Sure, and you've heard about them. Everybody's just about heard it. Very important women's dreaming, as I think Christine and referred to at the opening here. In fact, she talked about, I forget. Well, she was using Walpuri sort of names, but I can't remember the Walpuri name for the Morning Star, which is, as she, well, you weren't here at that, but she sort of described him as a dirty old man chasing these 7 young women. If I'm sure you remember that. He's the Morning Star, the old man, and that is actually in a lot of Aboriginal law. This is LORE as well as, gets into law as well, LAW, but law meaning storytelling, LORE. That old fella chasing the Seven Sisters is, spread right across, Aboriginal law, in many parts of Australia, but he's that really bright, that's actually a star, that bright thing there. It's a planet, that's Venus, and that's the old fella who's chasing, because the planets, well, the Greeks call them, I think the word planet means wanderer, and what that means, and Aboriginal, I don't believe they have names for them, but I don't think they don't generically call, Mars and Saturn and Jupiter, they don't call them planets, they give them specific names, but the word planets comes from a Greek word, I think it is, I could be wrong there, and it means wanderers, and why they call them wanderers is because you'll see them in different parts of the sky in different years and different parts of the season.